let's get into behaviors. What are some of the things behind behaviors? So, and I think of this as I, as an individual, am in control of how I do what I do on a day-to-day basis. I've got my area here. I've got my work habits, my behaviors that make me productive or make me unproductive. So, David, let's start shaping some of this.
So, you're absolutely right, Pete. The behaviorals are what are your, within your working environment, what are the behaviors that you need to create, or habits, for you to be personally effective? And also, as a leader, what are the expectations when there is collaboration, when there is team interaction, when there is interaction with potential customers, doing all this virtually? What are the expected behaviors then? Some behaviors may be that, even though you're virtual, that you may be asked as an individual to dress professionally. You can't wear just a tattered sweatshirt if you're talking to an executive.
I hope you like the way I'm dressed today, right? It's still, it's the sports jacket, golf jacket sort of thing over the top of a button-down shirt, right? So, and I shaved and I showered and all that. Now, by the way, I mean, if the norm for you and your team is throw on the hoodie and the baseball cap, then go for it. I mean, it's not, you're not trying to impress your teammates necessarily if you set that team norm, and that's really the key. Discussion ahead of time.
Yeah, and Pete, part of those behaviors also is what individually, what do you do on a daily basis to be more effective? And a couple years back, you wrote a book called Act Now.
Yeah. So I'll hit the highlights there.
Go ahead and hit that.
It's a tracking system for the full name of the book, Act Now, a daily action log for achieving your goals in 90 days. And it talks about what are the goals that you have and how to set them correctly, and then cascade them down and give you some down to a weekly focus. And then what am I going to do every day? And there are 3 different types of action to take on a daily basis. There's the planned actions, which is based on the action plan that I've created for my goals. What are the things that I intend to do today? I'm going to put them on a to-do list or my calendar right there, slot them in, and I'm going to do them. I'm planning to do them. What are those? Then there's the daily habits, which are those things that create an environment for success. So it's focusing on your goals, visualizing them as complete and successful. These are all those success accelerators. Have to do with journaling or meditating or exercising or reading, or all of those things that just make you a better productive individual, human being that performs at a higher level. So there's that whole list of things. And because you have invested maybe 30 minutes or an hour, whatever for you a day on the daily habit side, and you have your plan, you also have an intention for the day. So today is going to be a client focused day, or today is going to be a product creation day, or today is going to be a catch-up day. Whatever your focused intention is for the day, that's the context that you then take all those other actions in. So your planned actions, your daily habits, and because of the clarity of your intention, which is like the clarity of what we said before, here's what has to get done this week, team. Here's what has to get done today, team. Here's who's got what. Now that leaves you in a place where, because you're doing the daily habits, it enables that light bulb moment, right? So you can see my little hand light bulb that I'm signaling over my head, if you can actually see me sitting here in this chair. So
that was a good light bulb.
That was a good light bulb. So the light bulb moment is now, here's this intuitive hit or this inspired idea that now you have to take the inspired action as a result. It wasn't part of your action plan. It's like, don't forget, call Joe. Joe's got some news. Joe has some input. I have an idea for Joe, right? Whatever it might be that might, get you to move forward more quickly. So those are all of the types of things within that structure. So then there's a daily structure that goes with it. Interestingly, David and I just went out to a full 3-day conference high performance experience. And it was all about, what the most high performing people do. We're big fans of Brendan Burchard. He wrote a book called High Performance Habits. We've read the book, we've gone through his experience. And the good news is what's in Act Now is consistent. There's just this bigger perspective out there. And what he did is a ton of research studying the most productive and high performers out there in the world with a number of different research exercise and things. And those exercises and the data that came back, created essentially a curriculum that he put together. And we're learning, so even though I wrote a book on this topic of how do you achieve your goals in 90 days with the right level of focus and structure and all of that, there's still a ton of learning that I'm doing, and David and I are both doing. And we came back from that a couple of weeks ago, and we structurally changed how we do what we do. And I'm modifying some of my behaviors consciously as a result of doing that. So that's the whole behavior modification. And part of what's really interesting, I'll talk about David and Pete. So my work style is different than David's work style. For myself, I am I am the shiny object guy, right? If there's and I'm very social. So if there's an opportunity for me to be distracted by a conversation that's going on the other side of the office, and it sounds like it's fun, right? This is the extrovert in me, like, hey, how can I get plugged into that, right? So the other thing that, is a belief that I have about my role as the CEO of this company is that I want to make sure everyone's supported, and I don't want to be the barrier to other people getting their jobs done. So if someone has a question, I want them to come ask me. I want them to tap me on the shoulder and interrupt what I'm doing. The problem is interruptions are a major barrier for me personally to get over. And as they would be for anyone, but for me in particular, it's just something that I know, I recognize, I've studied myself over the number of years, that doesn't work as well for me. And, of course, there is some data that when there's a disruption and an interruption, especially when you're head down working on creativity time, it creates a problem. There is an actual delay, and the productivity is markedly or remarkably less when you have frequent disruptions. And so, I am susceptible to that. I know that. And so now I have to put up some mechanisms around me to protect myself from disruption. So what's great about this office, as you can see here, it is, if you're able to see from a video standpoint, but if you're, this is in the basement of my house. There's a nice window light here. It was a mess very recently, and Renee and I cleaned it up in a big way, motivated by the chipmunk that had broken into my house and lived here for a week and pooped all over my office. So there was a sanitary reason to do that too. But my goodness, it's an environment that I can actually get some work done in now that wasn't so easy before. And all the other activity is upstairs, and I'm pretty well protected right here. David, just say a few words about your work style and what some of your tricks are.
So, Pete, you're so right how different we are.
In a lot of ways, not just work style, but yes.
That's very true. So, for me, when I'm, heads down, looking and working with a company's financials and doing a lot of analytics, as that all ties together, I'm able to block everything out. Okay. Even if there's conversations right next to me, I'm able to block that out with an understanding that, if I'm heads down, I need to be heads down and can't be distracted. Right. So someone asking the question that will take me out of my zone, and then I'll come up. And of course, we both want to help everyone in the office. So, it's that passion as well. So one of the tricks that I've done is when I do have something very intense, I'll do a couple things. Either I'll work from home where I have my own, environment that I've created here. And we'll get into more of those details here in a minute. or I will let the folks in the office know, hey, for the next 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to be heads down. So please don't distract me. Don't ask me questions. I will then come up for air in 30 or 40 minutes and answer any questions you have. And we go from there. And I call them sprints. It's very intense head down sprints, and then come up for air, make sure everybody in the office is doing well, and then back heads down. And I find that to be very effective.
Right. And, so here we are talking about the differences between the two of us, and you could tell there's still a sense of what it looks like in a normal work environment. Well, let's convert this into today's conversation, which is now, well, how do you put things in place when people are automatically working remotely and they may not have done that as part of their normal drill? So, if you're the business leader and you recognize that you're working with David, and who is a relatively focused guy, and he may tell you, or you may ask him, hey, when's the next time we can connect? And if you're working with me, who is fairly distracted, if I have someone messaging me back and forth, that could be an issue. So I have messaging enabled on my phone. The notifications, rather. Obviously, messaging comes up on the phone or the computer, but my notifications on my computer are turned off, all of them. So I get my calendar reminders and my texts and things to pop up on my phone. So if I need some focused time, this is what I've learned about myself, and you could maybe have conversations with those people that are easily distracted. Say, hey, let's practice this sprint for an hour, then check in thing. So I've got my phone out of sight at this moment because we're doing this podcast. So with that in mind, this enables us to have this conversation, and I'm not being distracted by, hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. New notification, new pop-up. I'm not multitasking. I have one focus at a time right now. So Those are some things that you might implement and have conversations around for yourself.
Yeah, and Pete, you just touched on something very important. As a leader, one of the roles of highly effective leaders is being a coach and mentor to every person on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So people on the team may not have ever worked virtually before. So they're struggling on how do they deliver, to the expectations. So as a leader, ask them some questions. Some basic questions like, when are you most productive in the day? And if you're working on something that is really intense, describe that environment to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, through some basic questioning, you can find out that, wow, this person is like Pete, who is distracted very, very easily. Okay. Let me give him some tips, or her some tips on how they can be more effective.
Right.
Or this person's like David, who, when I'm working on something very intently, I can't have silence. I actually need to have a little bit of music going on in the background because it helps me concentrate even better.
Yeah.
So
music helps me concentrate too. It's just that every new song, I'm like, oh, what song is that? Let me check out the lyrics, right? It's like, so that you as the leader are also, now helping and mentoring your team members to be productive in their environment. And the message here is not everyone is the same. There's different preferences, different styles, and you have to help them to adjust. So.
And the most important thing is, as a leader in these times, is encourage your team members to experiment. Maybe talk to them in the morning or at the end of the day, ask them about how their day went, what went well, what didn't, environmentally, and we'll get more into that here in a second. But as far as the tactical, did they get enough information from you? Not enough.
Mm-hmm.
What else, was getting in their way? And then experiment the next day.
Yeah, and I think
running multiple experiments over and over and over will do two huge things for you as a leader. One, it will help your team members be more effective faster, number one. And number two, we still have to get those projects done.
Right. Yeah. So make the certainly how are we doing on the projects part of the conversation, but then also make the whole question of how are we doing productively? What challenges are you finding?
Mhm.
Make that part of the conversation because everybody's having it. People are moaning, to each other about, oh, I can't seem to get anything done, or oh my goodness, I'm so far behind on this because I had these distractions. They're real. They're talking about them. So just elevate them, bring them into everyone's conscious awareness, and empathize with guys. I get it. Team, this is different. I understand. And with that in mind, let's support each other. I'll support you. Let's support each other with becoming more productive, more efficient than you would in a vacuum. So what can we do? What support do you need? What can I do for you? What did you try yesterday? How did it work? How did today go? Make that part of the conversation. And in the matter of a few days, you'll find that people are really starting to click again. But you have to proactively make that part of the purpose, as opposed to just assuming everybody's going to do what you already have figured out, because maybe they haven't. You might have a lot of employees who have never worked remotely before, so you've got to help them through that.